Round 5, pick 159, the Kansas City Chiefs return to the well of offensive line in what may be considered a bit of a shocking move. I was taken a bit off guard, but not maybe as off guard as a pun, I guess I should have, but not as much off guard as I was later in the draft when the Kansas City Chiefs took a third offensive lineman. Now, here's the thing. This pick was perhaps a bit shocking, but it was all about value. Hunter Nourzad here in the 5th round, late in the 5th round, was largely considered a 4th round prospect, including Bleacher Report having him listed as the 85th overall prospect, and even NFL.com having him in the top 100 at prospect number 93. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs have had, in the Brett Veach era, a hiccup or two along the offensive line. So, is it surprising to see one draft, that a draft that only had 7 picks, by the way? The Kansas City Chiefs were not loaded with picks in this draft. One draft where the Kansas City Chiefs took 3 offensive linemen. Nearly half of their selections were offensive linemen. A little bit, it is shocking, but a little bit, I don't care, because the Kansas City Chiefs are now primed with a young offensive tackle in Wanye Morris entering his 2nd year in the league. Jawan Taylor, the other offensive tackle, is entering the 2nd year of his 4-year contract, and if he does not live up to snuff after this season, I believe, the Kansas City Chiefs could logically move on from him. The Kansas City Chiefs have an offensive center in Creed Humphrey and offensive guard in Trey Smith still on their rookie contracts, entering the final year of their rookie contracts. But now, all along the offensive line, there is a backup for now, offensive tackle who is a rookie in Kingsley Suamatea. I don't know what that means. Kingsley Suamatea, a backup center / guard in Hunter Nourzad, and they picked up another backup guard in the 7th round, though I think there's a little bit more going on with that pick. I think that I'll get to that when we get to his video, but this video will consist of a Who section where we discuss a little bit about who Hunter Nourzad is, what it is that he is capable of, his measurables, etc. A strengths and weaknesses slide where we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the prospect, and finally an analysis slide where I'm going to talk about why the Chiefs selected Hunter Nourzad, how Hunter Nourzad might fit into or onto the Kansas City Chiefs, depending on how you want to talk about that, and maybe some strategy for the future, or at least what might be factoring into future strategy. This video will also be part of the 2024 draft picks playlist here on the channel. I already have videos for the first 4 picks the Kansas City Chiefs made. I'll be going through all 7 selections in this series, as well as getting around to the undrafted rookie free agents. So who is Hunter Nourzad besides an offensive lineman with a really cool name? Well, at 6'3", he is in the 41st percentile for height, but at 317 pounds, he's in the 93rd percentile for weight. His 10 3/4 inch hands are good for 89th percentile. 33 1/8 inch arms are 63rd percentile. Here's the interesting thing with his dimensions. His 80-inch wingspan is 81st percentile. Now, 81st percentile wingspan minus that 63rd percentile arm length suggests that Hunter Nourzad's shoulders are approximately 1 Hunter Nourzad wide. He ran a 5.15 40-yard dash, which is 73rd percentile. Not really all that interesting a stat for a guy who, we will touch on this later, but I definitely do not want to see playing offensive tackle. Now, those 27 bench press reps, that's a good number. I was not able to find a reliable number as far as what the percentile is for that. However, I will say that he was tied for 10th at the Combine with JoeH, who also did 27 reps. Kingsley Suamatea, by the way, was tied for 3rd with 31. I don't remember if I touched on that in Kingsley's video. So we are talking about a guy who is going to get a chance at the center position and is also going to get a chance at, basically, this is the Nick Allegretti replacement. He is a center guard type prospect. So I thought it would be interesting to look at him in comparison with Creed Humphrey a little bit. Creed Humphrey, 6'4" and 1/4", so he is a little over an inch taller than Hunter Nourzad. Hunter Nourzad is 15 pounds heavier compared to Creed Humphrey's 302 pounds. Hunter Nourzad's arm length is an entire inch longer. His hands are an inch and 1/4 bigger. Creed Humphrey's 40-yard dash was 5.11 compared to the 5.15 by Hunter Nourzad. Creed Humphrey ended up doing 29 reps on the bench press compared to Hunter Nourzad's 27. Now, Creed also participated in the vert, the broad jump, the 3-cone drill, the short shuttle. He did all of that stuff, and Hunter Nourzad decided to skip those events. I will say, Creed Humphrey, much like Nick Allegretti, was a wrestler in high school, and that comes through in their style of play. Hunter Nourzad, from what I can tell, did not wrestle. He was a track and field guy in addition to football. And that kind of shows through his play as well. Hunter is more of an athlete, I think, though we will get into a little bit of that later as well, whereas Creed Humphrey is a little bit more of a backyard brawler. Now, as far as his college career is concerned, Hunter Nourzad started college at Cornell before ending up at Penn State. You will see the years 2021, 2022, and 2023 on the screen there. 2021 was his final year at Cornell, where he played 632 snaps, giving up 1 sack and 4 hits. In 2022, his first year at Penn State, he played 574 snaps, giving up 2 sacks and 2 hits. Before 2023, where he played 785 snaps and surrendered 0 sacks, but gave up 5 hits. Now, on the bottom right hand of your screen is listed all of the different snaps he got at all of the different places along the offensive line. And yes, 170 snaps at left tackle and 458 snaps at right tackle are listed there, but they were all played at Cornell prior to his time at Penn State. Basically, what that is suggesting to me is that while he was at Cornell, he was just bigger, rougher, and tougher than everyone else, so he was able to outmuscle those guys with spots at the tackle position. The center, where he has 801 snaps, is where I believe he will earn his money in the NFL, though those 535 listed snaps at left guard and 25 snaps at right guard are definitely places where he can play. Certainly, it is a little bit weird to see such a disparity at right guard for some reason. I don't know if he has one of these weird stances where he's not very effective on the right half, but then why was he playing more right tackle than left tackle? It's just weird to see only 25 snaps at the right guard position with 535 at the left guard position. But another thing this says to me is the Kansas City Chiefs have found themselves another junkyard dog who wants to win. Listed here now are the strengths and weaknesses that I found researching Hunter Nourzad. Strengths, strength, intelligence and work ethic. Weaknesses, pass protection, bend, and blitz recognition. Not the best sign for a center to be, but we will get into that a little bit with the number 2 strength you see on your screen right now. But his strength is definitely evident on film. He's not necessarily the most violent with his hands. I do not think that he maybe necessarily has the most upper body strength. He has definitely functional upper body strength, doing 27 reps with 225 pounds on the bench press, but he really seems to have the core strength. He really seems to have the leg drive. He really, when people are running into him, it is almost as if they are running into a brick wall. Now, he is not explosive and violent in the way that Trey Smith is. Now, as for intelligence, you don't get to just go to Cornell. You don't get to do that. So I am saying anything the coaching staff decides to throw at him, he's going to be able to pick up. He's going to be able to process everything that's happening on the field. It just seems that he has some struggles with that right now. And especially with Andy's offense, getting offensive linemen in there that are really able to be high processors is a plus. Now, let's talk about the work ethic. I just mentioned how NFL.com had him ranked as the 93rd overall prospect, and that is interesting because, well, guess what, guys? Coming out of high school, he had no interest as an unranked prospect. He ended up going to Cornell because he was not recruited other places. So he gets to Cornell, and what happens? He gets 0 playing time in his first season being 2018. Then he starts at right tackle. Then the COVID season happens. Then he comes back and starts along the... He's built himself up from a guy that had no rankings coming out of high school to a guy coming out of college and is ranked as the number 93 prospect by NFL.com. And, by the way, in order to get there, he had to go to an extremely academically demanding school and start at all places along their offensive line before transferring to a place which has been known as an offensive center factory. I mean, this is the kind of guy who eats metal shavings for breakfast with no milk. Now you'll see number 1 on the weaknesses there is pass protection. And the reason that I'm putting that there is that so the number 3 thing there that you see, blitz recognition, we'll get to as well, but that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about him being weak in particular in pass protection. One thing that I don't see from him that I would like to see from him is staying busy. So oftentimes the offensive center is kind of the odd man out when you're talking about 4 defensive linemen versus 5 offensive linemen. What he does all too often is snap the ball and just sort of creep backwards. He does not stay busy by finding someone and picking them up. He does not stay busy by helping out the offensive guard. He does not stay busy by pre-snap saying, look, you're the offensive guard, help double team on the edge, I've got this defensive tackle. Well, in fairness, he might say that, I'm not in the huddle, but it doesn't come across on film. Now, saying that an offensive center does not have good bend sounds like an oxymoron. He has to snap the ball from the bent position. but he looks lumbering ever after the snap. Now, one thing I'm going to credit him with here, and maybe this is affecting my reading of his film, he does have very good extension with his arms. That is, he does not let players get into his body very easily. And really, I guess if your arms are fully extended, there's not really a whole lot of reason for you to be doing all that much bending and extending at the waist. And, I mean, look, he's the Cornell kid, right? Maybe he's looking at levers and fulcrums. He's looking at effort and load and deciding, look, when I get my considerable weight back in that load position, I become easier to throw off balance. So he's staying more upright in order to extend the arms versus bending at the legs, bending at the waist, and throwing his own mass all over the place. Which probably isn't a bad theory, but it seems to get him thrown off at times, especially if that number 3 thing there in blitz recognition. There are times where, now, in fairness, he wins these reps a lot, where he snaps the ball, he gets into his pass set, and all of a sudden there is someone else crossing his face. And in that circumstance, he has to sort of lunge out in order to make the block. And they're not always pretty blocks, but they're always pretty effective blocks. You know, it's strange. It's sort of like I alluded to earlier. You don't really see a whole lot of pop out of him. He's not really explosive on guys. He's not unloading on guys. But guys do not really get the opportunity to move him around very much. So what do I think that we can make out of this draft pick, this move in the draft altogether? Well, I will say first and foremost that even though we talked about the fact that he played left tackle and right tackle in college, I see little reason, basically zero reason, to assume that he can play any tackle at all at the NFL level. Now, that's certainly not the end of the world, but here's where it gets interesting. He is that Cornell guy, right? I hate to keep going back to that, but it's true. And having played those positions at the college level, he's going to understand a little bit better than someone who has never played those positions, what those guys are responsible for, what they may or may not be able to do, what the game looks like from the left tackle's perspective. As a center, that is an absolutely great tool to have. Now, do the Kansas City Chiefs need a replacement for backup offensive lineman Nick Allegretti? Absolutely, and that is the exact type of role that a guy like Hunter Nourzad will fill, at least immediately. But like we said, both Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are in the final years of their rookie contracts. Joe Thuney is in the penultimate season of his contract, and he's very, very, very expensive. Now, do I think that Chiefs' 7th rounder, C.J. Hansen, is going to be an NFL guy? I do at this point in time. But as far as I know anything, I know Hunter Nourzad is an NFL-level offensive lineman. Maybe I'm wrong, obviously. But everything I see from him tells me that he is able to play at the NFL level. And if he's able to improve his recognition skills, and I think we have every reason to believe that he's able to do that, he's a bright guy and he's going to get NFL coaching, I think Hunter Nourzad is a guy who can start on an offensive line as well. So I think that Hunter Nourzad was, I won't say a happy accident, but the fact that he fell all the way to the Chiefs in the 5th round suddenly opens up some positive optionality for the Kansas City Chiefs along the offensive line in the next couple of years. I do think that 2024 is likely to be an apprentice year for Hunter NOURZAD. I think that what he definitely does this season as a rookie is opens up the possibility that some of these guys are going to be able to get a few reps off here and there. Obviously, you could have done that with Nick Allegretti too, and they never really did. But we saw an explosion in rotation in the Chiefs' backfield once they started drafting lots and lots of players who can play safety and corner in the NFL. Will we finally get to see them do that on the offensive line now that they have 3 new players who look capable of playing in the NFL on not just on rookie contracts, but as rookies? I hope so. I hope we do see a little bit more rotation during the regular season. Listen to this. In 2021, Creed Humphrey played 1,185 offensive snaps. In 2022, he played 1,136 offensive snaps, and in 2023, he played 1,092 offensive snaps. These numbers represent 99, 99, and 97% of the snaps for which Creed Humphrey was eligible to play. This puts him through 3 seasons at 3,413 reps of offense. Now, that's 3,413 reps through 51 games of his career, meaning that Creed Humphrey plays an average of 66.92 snaps per game. He plays 67 snaps per game. Over the past 3 seasons, Creed Humphrey has played 691 snaps of postseason football, playoffs and Super Bowls, 691 additional snaps, which means that Creed Humphrey has played an additional 10.3 games of snaps of postseason football. That is 10.3 games over the course of just 3 seasons, additional wear and tear on his body, additional wear and tear and load and burden on Creed Humphrey's knees. In 3 seasons of football, Creed Humphrey himself, Creed Humphrey alone, has played about 3.5 seasons of football. That is not great. And I don't mean to pick on just Creed Humphrey. I mean, Trey Smith is in the exact same boat as he came into the league in the same season as Creed Humphrey. And beyond this, his apprentice season, Hunter NOURZAD. So basically what I'm saying by that is hopefully what Hunter NOURZAD et al. Will be able to do is offer this offensive line a little bit of time off during the regular season. A drive here, a drive there, something like that. Or even as the Kansas City Chiefs, we think, will have a very good offense if they find themselves in some blowout situations where there is no point for the Creed Humphreys, there is no point for the Trey Smiths, there is no point for the Joe Thuney's of the world to be on the field. We will have players to be able to step in for them. Beyond that, the optionality after this season and next season have expired. Who do you want to bring back? Is it possible that the Kansas City Chiefs are able to re-sign both Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey? Maybe. I don't know. I think it would be tough, and we have heard a lot more in recent seasons about how organizations are choosing to basically find a budget for different position groups, referring to it as buckets, right? We have an offensive line bucket. So you see a guy like Jawan Taylor get brought in on big dollars. You see a guy like Joe Thuney come to town on very big dollars for an offensive guard, and all of a sudden the rest of those places have much less play with their money budgets. So you have two big salary guys, one at right tackle, one at left guard. All of a sudden your center and your right guard come up for contracts. Maybe it ends up that the Kansas City Chiefs are only able to re-sign one of those two guys. Having a Hunter Nourzad on the bench with a year of experience under his belt makes that loss more palatable. Obviously, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, if they do leave Kansas City, have a long and bright future as tag team partners in the WWF. But Creed and Trey, as the new Dudley Boys, do the Kansas City Chiefs very little good. However, Hunter Nourzad and C.J. Hansen entering the league together in the same draft in the very same way that Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith did will have 4 years together. Now, do I believe that Hunter Nourzad can be either Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith? I think he has the tools to do it. I think that he has a higher floor than Nick Allegretti did. I think he has a higher ceiling than Nick Allegretti did. I do believe that Hunter Nourzad could be the reason the Kansas City Chiefs are able to move on from either Trey Smith or Creed Humphrey in a way that I never really believed Nick Allegretti could have been that guy. So like I said earlier, even in the comments that Brett Veach has made since the draft, I don't really think that the Kansas City Chiefs were targeting Hunter Nourzad. I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs went into this draft with the mindset of, hey, we've got to take 3 offensive linemen. And I certainly don't think that they went into this draft thinking, hey, we have to take 2 interior offensive linemen. I think they just let their board fall where it fell. And so as much as you or I or anybody else may have wanted, for example, just throwing a position out there, a running back, because a running back in the 5th round is more flashy than having a UDFA running back, Carson Steele, competing for the 4th running back / the 1st practice squad running back, whatever it is that he's competing for. You draft a running back in that 5th round and feel good up until training camp when you realize he's not an NFL player. The Kansas City Chiefs took who is a player who I believe is definitely an NFL player, and there seems to be a pretty good consensus about the fact that Hunter Nourzad is an NFL player. So by playing their draft board the way they played their draft board, the Chiefs suddenly have one more starting level player on their roster, even if he's not in a starting role, and that opens up optionality in the future, even if that optionality is something like a trade. There will always, always, always be a quarter of the league that is absolutely desperate for offensive line play. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I humbly present to you Giga Chad, Nittany Lion, Hunter Nourzad.